Hey everybody, welcome back to the High Performance Zone. Today, 22.6 million viewers watch the National Football Championship, Alabama and Georgia. Congratulations, Georgia. But listen, we're going behind the scenes. I've got two of the officials on right now, and we're going to unpack how do you perform under pressure. We talk about some of the key plays that they were able to officiate. And in fact, those of you who watched the game remember very critical key plays in the very first quarter. How about the one, there was a double call? Is it, he gets sacked, quarterback gets sacked. Question is it a fumble? Is it a pass? It's going out of bounds. One of the Alabama players recovers it. And it's like, holy crap, the officials called this a fumble and a recovery in bounds. And if you all remember, if you watched this game, it was laser focus. Was his toe in? There's the green, the white, and his black shoe. Well, guess what? Steve made the call, and we talk about that call here. But it's not just about making the calls. You know, we had been working with the ACC crew all year long. This glad to be here message was embedded into how they operate, their briefs, their debriefs. So you're going to get a really beautiful podcast today on taking the glad to be here message and actually applying it to not only officiating, but we talk about how they apply it in business, how to apply it in life, and most importantly, enjoy some of the stories here. This is real. This is raw. This just happened. And oh yeah, Nick Saban. I give you some inside stories on Nick Saban. All right. Enjoy this podcast. I had a blast. It's worth it. Glad to be here. Here we go. Hey, Stuart and Steve, welcome to the High Performance Zone. Thank you for being here, especially right after that powerful and amazing national championship game. Let me just start with what's your biggest memory from the game, which was only, Monday, 4 days ago. And thank you for being here. Glad to be here.
Glad to be here.
Glad to be here. Yeah. Stuart, I'll let you go first on that.
Well, I tell you, it's kind of a blur, to be honest, at this point, because, it was just such a wonderful experience that, we were assigned to this, 5-6 weeks ago, and we had all this time to prepare, all these weeks of Zoom meetings and rules tests and film study. And then we got there and there was a lot of pageantry and meetings we had to attend. And then suddenly we're in the game. And 3.5 hours later, it's over. So it's kind of a blur, but, really my best memories of the entire time in Indianapolis really is the time with the crew, the camaraderie with the crew. Now, once the crew got on the field, and I was the alternate this time. I was the referee on the crew this time. So I'm on the sideline watching these guys work and helping out in ways that I can. But, these guys honestly nailed the game. They did such an incredible job. And it's because of all that preparation that they did leading up to it, that we did leading up to it. And so I guess my greatest memory of the days in Indianapolis is that 3.5 hours watching these guys nail down everything we talked about doing on Zoom calls and during our meetings there in Indianapolis for several weeks.
Awesome. Stuart, Steve, I'll let you go here, but real quick, the idea, you guys did nail it. I got to tell you, man, I'm watching the game both from a fan standpoint. I had the rare privilege to work with Alabama 4 years ago, so I knew Nick Saban and the team. Georgia actually spoke to the university the athletic department just a month ago. And so I kind of had a stake in everything, but I really had the stake in you guys, having spoken to your crew about a month ago, we'll talk more about that. I just want to say, holy crap, you got every call right. And there were some tough freaking calls, especially watching it from this, just as a fan. And, how about the millimeter call on the toe in with the fumble? Was it a pass? Was it a fumble? And everything you guys nailed. That doesn't just happen. So we're going to unpack that in a big way. And Steve, I know you had a lot to do on the field there, but what's your greatest memory? Let's go for it.
Well, the first thing, I'll take it back to when the assignment came out as well. I've been at this a long time, like Stuart, and, we work for this type of opportunity. And, we work hard at it. We do what we can to prepare to be the best of the best. And to actually have it come true is going to be a memory of mine. The actual getting the email and the call that we're assigned to this game,
yeah,
I'll cherish forever. And then, of course, with that starts all the conversation with our peers, everybody getting the congratulatory messages out to you. You're responding to everyone, all these people that are so happy for you. I mean, that's going to be a great memory for the rest of my life too. And Bill Parcells once said, and our boss told us this after the game, they can never take it away from you now. When they were nationals, Super Bowl champs, he said that to the Giants, and he said, and our boss said it to us, they can never take it away from you guys. Will forever be etched in the books as the crew that worked the national championship game. And so that to me is just, it resonates huge. But the best memory I think is, and Stuart touched on some of it, is the way we just came together as a crew. Some of us worked together all year on Stuart's crew, as he mentioned, and some of us were from other crews. And we just came together in the preparation. And the fact that you run out of that tunnel, and I'm getting chills thinking about it, when you run out on that tunnel and you see the atmosphere and the fans and how it means so much to so many people. 22.6 million people watched this game, by the way.
Yeah.
One of the highest rated shows of all time. And you think about, you're a part of it. I mean, that's a memory that'll last for me forever. It was incredible.
I'm glad you got chills. I love your backdrop for everybody who's watching. There it is, the Lucas Stadium. I love it. A couple of things real quick to dive into is you mentioned about getting the call or the email, that you've been selected. And I want to know, how did you get selected, right? Where does that come from? But I also want to share that, on the Blue Angels, there's a lot of similarity. I remember when you're an applicant and you're out there just doing your job and, like you guys are every week, just doing your job, doing a great thing. And all of a sudden you get recognized by your peers or selected to join the team. They did have a call, and I don't know how your call went, but here's how mine went. I was in the ready room of the fighter squadron that I was in. I was an instructor with the Marines called VMFAT 101. We're in El Toro. And, you're in the ready room, and that's kind of where everybody hangs out and gets ready before they go flying. And all of a sudden the duty officer goes, hey, Foley, or Gucci actually is what he said. He goes, there's a phone call, and it's the Blue Angels. And I'm like, holy shit, right? And so I go walk, and he says, hey, you can take it in that room. It's a private room. So I go there and I pick up the phone and I say, yes, sir, John Gucci Foley here. And it's the boss. It's the boss of the Blues. And he starts very low key. He's going, Gucci, we're really glad you spent the time to come out and see us. We really appreciated the effort. It was nice to see you. And I mean, he's starting in this thing where I'm going, holy shit, he's about to say no, and I even preempt him. I started to feel so bad for him that I said, boss, listen, it's no problem. I'll apply next year. Thanks for the opportunity. And then you hear on speakerphone, welcome aboard, asshole. that was the whole team, right? Was yelling. And I was like, oh, they hooked me, right? But anyhow, what was the call like that you guys got, and how did you get picked?
So I'll take that first, Stuart. First of all, there's a lot of things. It seems like everything we do that you did and we do now, that as a Blue Angel and as a football official, it's so synergistic, but I don't even know which word is correct, but it's funny. I've gotten that phone call now 4 times in my life. At each level I've progressed in officiating, and Stuart has progressed through the same levels. And no matter what level we were progressing to, that phone call felt the same way. Like, first of all, level of excitement is tremendous. But it seems like all the bosses seem to talk about how they're going to do it, because they all have the same approach yours did. He wants to start off low key and then just sort of hit you with the, hey, you should be excited because here you go. But when I got the message that I was getting the national championship game, it became like, wow, I've reached the peak of, the peak performance of my career is now I'm working the game. And other than the Super Bowl and the National Football League, this is the next level Super Bowl of the collegiate football league, collegiate football. And so it was just, you realize you're one of less than 200 people who have ever worked this game. It's an amazing thing since the inception of the college football playoff. That is, it's just an amazing thing. But the phone call was, I don't know, the level of excitement was beyond. I can't explain it. Go ahead, Stuart. I mean, to answer your other point, how did we get here? Stuart Mullins has a lot to do with that. I mean, our crew, how we were picked was, I mean, first our conference was selected to work this game, and then our boss selected us. And you're going to represent the conference. The entire world's looking at you. Our boss wants to make sure that he's got the people on this game that he knows are going to nail it. They've performed very well all year. I believe that we performed very well. The four guys that were on this game that were part of Stuart Mullins' crew, including Stuart, we perform well because we prepared every week. Stuart is a tremendous leader, and he prepared us week after week, and we were able to deliver for him and for the conference. And that's how I believe I got the game assignment. Stuart, I don't know what your thoughts are.
I appreciate Steve saying that, and certainly as a crew, our crew worked hard all year, preparing every single week for every single specific game we were going to have, not just general preparation plus preparation for the two teams we were going to see on the field that week. So I appreciate Steve saying that, because I felt like all the preparation did pay off, and I got four guys in the national championship game. But to answer your question, on Sunday, everybody knew what games the ACC was going to get. So everybody was like, wow, the ACC has the national championship game. Who's going to get it? Officials, my wife says we gossip worse than a bunch of women at a beauty shop, because, the text messages are flying. Who's going to get this? And on Monday, the grapevine starts. So-and-so has the Citrus Bowl. So-and-so has a Liberty Bowl. And I'm like, wow, I haven't gotten a call yet. And then I get the text, so-and-so has this bowl. And then so-and-so has that bowl. I'm like, wow, maybe I'm sitting home this year. And then that email came through. I'm sitting in this very spot at my desk at school. I teach middle school history. I was sitting right here, and I'm looking at it going, wow, my name's on the national championship game. And it was just, it was like a kid. I was as excited probably as I was as a kid waiting on Christmas time, as excited as I was as a teenager playing football, looking forward to going out and playing a game. It was just, I can't describe the joy I felt at that moment.
Well, it's defines glad to be here in that moment, right? I mean, we're going to talk about glad to be here throughout the whole podcast, but that's a sheer moment of gratitude, right? So how would you define glad to be here in that perspective, that moment?
Well, there's so many officials. I don't know a number. Steve probably does, but there's so many Division I football officials in this country. And, we're divided into 5 Power 5 conferences and then the group of 5 conferences. And, every single one of them would have loved to have had that game. Yeah. And so that's just glad to be here to the extreme. I mean, I'm so blessed, to have had that assignment. We have 10 crews in the ACC, 10 crews of 8 officials each. Everybody would have loved to have been in that game. And so glad to be here. That's just, as you said a minute ago, I think that's the definition of glad to be here.
Steve, what did it mean to you in that moment?
Oh, well, the first thing, glad to be here, absolutely, and glad to have the opportunity to represent the conference. And then the mentality of I'm going to nail this. The crew's going to nail it. We're not just working for ourselves. We're working for our fellow officials. We're working for the game of college football. We're working for our supervisor who entrusted us with this assignment. And so, as Stuart said, glad to be here on a level that's just beyond. But and he's right. We have 10 FBS conferences in college football, and the average staff is 70 to 100 guys, including replay. So you're looking at 700, 800, 1,000 officials that could have had this game. Yep. So when you realize you're one of the 8 on the field and 11 overall, you're just thinking all that preparation, that glad to be here mentality, that focus, everything, it paid off. And now we're going to show what that really means when we have the opportunity we have. So
nice. And you guys did. Again, to me, glad to be here is the combination of everything we're talking about here with that operational excellence, that ability to go out there and then do it, right? And you guys did. And that's what's impressive. And I also like the purpose larger than self mentality you both talked about, right? I mean, to me, that's critical. It's not just getting selected and being grateful for what you've achieved. It's what you guys are really talking about is what you represent whether it's the ACC, your other, officials, really much more to college football, right? And then even inspiration to, and by the way, Stuart, thank you for being a teacher and out there and taking care of the middle school kids, right? So the idea here is that this is such a perfect example of the breadth and power of Glad to Be Here, right? So thank you for being here. Hey, as we dive into some of the other themes, I still not sure why the ACC get the game this year, and is it something that's rotated? And how did your supervisor pick you guys?
So I'll take the first part, Stuart, if you want to take the second part. So how that works is the NCAA and the national coordinator of officials selects the conferences that are going to work the bowl games. And so there's a rule in the assignments that your conference cannot work a bowl game or postseason game that one of your teams from your conference is in.
Yeah.
So that's why they wait till that Sunday Stuart reference right after the season ends to figure out who's going to which bowl games. And then we know that if it's an SEC team against a Pac-12 team, those two conference official staffs can't work that bowl game. In this particular case, ACC did not have anybody in the playoff, and hence ACC was one of the conferences that was in the running for it. The last time the ACC had this game was 13 years ago, I believe, Stuart. And so we were fortunate enough to be picked as a conference. I also think that, the conference had a very good, strong year for college football overall and officiating, and it was recognized by the national coordinator based on the program that our boss puts forward, Dennis Hennigan. So I think they felt very comfortable that ACC would be handling this game fairly well. And then I'll let you, Stuart, answer how we got selected.
Well, our supervisor, Dennis Hennigan, he evaluates officials on different levels with different tools. I mean, there's raw data, obviously. Each game is graded, and you get numerical scores for various plays, good or bad. And, that's done weekly for every game. And obviously, you want to grade out really well to be considered for this game, which the guys on this crew did. But it goes beyond that. I mean, Dennis has been here. Dennis has worked the national championship, and he has position coaches who are in the NFL that he listens to. He has other evaluators. He puts out 2 training films every week. So he watches every play from every game. And even on a subjective level, he knows who can be in those positions to make the calls like Steve May that you referenced a moment ago, Gucci, on the sideline. He knows who can do that. He knows who's capable of it. So certainly there's raw data that goes into it, but there's also that subjectivity of Dennis, who has been there, who's been there and done that, and as well as his position coaches and other evaluators and all the game film he watches, et cetera. So it's kind of a multifaceted grading system he has, and you're going to have to grade out in that top tier to be considered for this game.
Now, it makes sense. And I assume, but I didn't realize the level of detail that's done, or what we would call a debrief, right? We'll talk more about the debrief after every game. And just like the Blue Angels, you guys, that's why there are so many similarities here, right? Watch the game film, not just the players, not just the coaches, the officials are watching game film, grading each other, grading the thing. Well, let me ask you that. How does the grades get made? So who does the grading?
Well, there's several graders. Some are retired ACC officials who stay involved in the game. Some are NFL officials. Dennis himself grades at least 1 or 2 games per week. So it's people who have been in the position, who are qualified to make judgments on whether we're right or wrong about things.
And what kind of grade do you get? I mean, what are they evaluating?
So obviously they evaluate all the fouls we call in the game. That's got to be looked at, whether we were right or wrong about those. But it goes way beyond that. They're looking at every play. If we have 200 plays in a game, the grader's looking at every single play of those 200 plays to look at maybe things we didn't catch.
Right.
Maybe there's infractions we did not catch, which happens from time to time. Sure. Maybe it's our mechanics. Maybe, there may be a note, Stuart, why were you looking here on this play when your key's over here? Yep. They're looking at how efficiently and quickly we enforce penalties. Yep. Are we enforcing penalties correctly? There's so much that goes into it. I mean, there's just, the average person doesn't know, I think the average person thinks that's our job, go and call the 10 fouls that happen in a game. But really, we're doing something on 200 plays, from whether it's ball rotation, whether it's making sure the defense has a chance to sub when the offense subs, dead ball officiating, talking to players. You don't want to throw a flag every time two players are in each other's face. You want to go talk to them. You want to go deal with it. You want to de-escalate that situation and not have the game devolve. And so there's something we're doing on every play that the grader's looking at, not just the 10 or so plays where we throw a flag.
Okay. And do you actually get a physical grade? Is it like a number or what is it?
Yes, it is a number. And basically at the beginning of the year, you start out with a 100. And
okay.
as the season goes, and if you get downgrades on plays, so you get a -2 on a play in your first game, well, now your grade for the year is a 98, and it just kind of goes from there. You can also get plus grades. It's not, you don't just get downgrades. If you have a great call, you can get a +3, so you can end up in that second game with 103 as your grade going forward through the rest of the year. So it's it's pretty detailed what they do.
Okay, got it. Now I want to get into the game real quick, and then we'll get more into the prep and all that kind of stuff. But first off, Steve, did you make that call on the sideline that I was referencing? Was that your call? Was he in or out?
In or out was my call. That was a two-part play where the first was it a fumble or an incomplete, and then was he inbounds on the recovery or out? And so I had the second half of that play. Is he inbounds or out? And I had him obviously inbounds and got it right.
Wow. I mean, I just got goosebumps because of all the plays, and we're going to go through some that's in your mind. That was the critical one at the time, two-part play, like you said. But the thing that blew away, at least me, and I think everyone who's watching, was that initially it looked potentially like he was out, nonchalant, blah, 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 blah. And then the call was in. And, even the commentators, I don't know if you watched the commentators' games, they actually were leaning towards, that he's probably out. And then the photographs, that's what's so cool about technology is it zooms in. And I mean, no kid is like, holy shit, there's a sliver of green before the white. How can a human being make that call so well? So how did you make the call?
Well, I'm going to incorporate a lot of different things that we've talked about already. And first of all, focusing, I've got a lot to focus on as the play is developing, but then as I feel that this is a play back behind me with the referee potentially ruling a fumble or an incomplete pass, I turn my focus to where the action's going to be. I see the ball come out, and since I'm focused, I'm able to relax and I'm able to be calm. And I'm thinking, okay, this play is multifaceted. However, there's only one thing I have to focus on right now. Where's the ball? Was he in? Was he out? And then I also, as Stuart mentioned, mechanically, was I in the right position? And I happen to be in the right position. I'm right on the line. I'm able to look down the line. I'm able to see the difference between white and green, his black shoe, and to me, and the ball. And so I wish I could tell you it's the most difficult thing in the world, but I think I was prepared enough to say, I think I made it look somewhat easier than it is, but I was fortunate enough to be in the right spot and be focused on it. And I knew that that's the part of the play that I have to get right, so I could focus just on that part.
Now, how much do you trust your instincts in that moment? And when does the doubt creep in?
So great question. And my instincts and experience, I judge things not just from the focal point, which is the toe and the sideline, but also where his body is, also the athleticism he's showing, the speed in which he's running. And I think to myself, okay, he's got a shot to be in on this because he's not running too fast. He's got body control. And so that's part of what I evaluate. The other part is the technology part of it gives me the confidence to say, if I am wrong, we're not going to go home knowing we made a mistake because technology is going to fix it. And I'm thankful for some officials, especially when it first started, were concerned about replay. I love it. I think it's great because I don't want to go home thinking I made a mistake that now stands all the time because we were not able to fix it back in the old days. Now I know we could fix it. But you still have to make that decision and still have to officiate the game. And so I knew that there was 75 cameras stored on this game, something like that.
Yes.
75
Yes.
cameras were on this game. So I knew somebody's going to have an angle to show that I was right. And if I'm not, we're going to be able to fix it.
Nice. Nice. Stuart, on the grading system back there real quick. So I'm kind of curious, did you guys get graded yet for the national championship game?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
It'll happen. It'll happen.
I can't wait to see that grade. I guarantee there's a bunch of +3s coming your way, Steve, on some things. But what would be typical at the end of the year for a grade for or what were your guys' grades? Were you above 100, below 100? What was the grades?
I tend not to go and try to do the math until I get my end of the year evaluation. So
right.
I'll tell you then. Well, when I get into the year evaluation, it'll have it written right in there. So
I would say to answer that question, I would say Stuart probably landed somewhere between 95 and 100 for the year, and I'd like to think I did too. I mean, not as Stuart said, we haven't really calculated the entire season yet and aggregated it, but I would say that's probably where we had to land to get this assignment.
Yeah. No, got it. Got it. Okay. So let's get back into the emotion side of the game. So take me through some of, we talked about preparation a little bit, right? But let's kind of walk through it. You got the call, you're selected. Stuart, I'm not sure I fully understand, your role on the side versus everybody's role, and tell me a little bit. It's really basic question. Hell, I played football. I still don't understand. What does a line judge really do? Okay. What does the referee do? Let's go through it very quickly for the people who may not understand football at the highest levels.
Oh, wow. So there's 8 of us on the field, and the referees kind of in control of administering the game. We control the flow and the clock, and we're not in charge of penalty administration. That's kind of a crew thing, but we're kind of the person in charge of making sure it all gets communicated correctly to the public. We have, obviously, as a referee, I still have duties during the game. I have the right tackle, holding, roughing the passer, all that kind of stuff, officiating like everybody else. Besides me in the backfield as a center judge, which was Adam Savoy in the championship game, who is on my crew during the regular season as well. He kind of mirrors me. He kind of does everything I do on the opposite side in the offensive backfield, except that he's not kind of in control of the overall administration of the game. And then you got the guys who really officiate the game. To be honest, you got the headline judge and the line judge, which was Steve Matarante and Matt Fitzgerald in the championship game. And those guys, I couldn't tell you the number of duties they have. I mean, it's beyond just spotting the ball. I worked on the wing when I first started doing high school football, and that position is involved to the point that they have everything. They have the formations, false starts, offside, illegal motions, illegal shifts. Obviously, they do have to get accurate spots on the ball. They administer they mark off the penalties. Those guys officiate the game. And then you got the man in the middle. You got the umpire, Johnny Fort, who is my umpire in the regular season, was in the championship game. Those guys they're the police officer we always call them on the crew. They're in charge of the middle of the field. And, they're the guys most likely to call that holding in the middle of the line, in the hands of the face, in the middle of the line. And they're in there communicating with the big guys, the center and the guards the entire game, and keeping those guys under control so the rest of us don't have to. And then you got the 3 guys deep, the field judge, back judge, and side judge, who, those guys got to be on their horse and keep a good cushion between themselves and the players in the goal line. They got to keep the players on front of them and keep the goal line behind them, so they can keep the whole game in front of them, which is hard to do when you got a Division I athlete, who's 20 years old, who runs a 4.40 coming running at you full speed. And that's hard to do, but those guys do a great job doing it. Mechanically, they know how to do it. So, and then as far as my role in the championship game, the alternate is kind of there to help with a little bit of everything. I was lined up on the Georgia sideline, which was the home sideline in the stadium, about 3 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, helping if linemen drifted downfield, helping. They had a couple of intentional grounding calls in the game, and I was on the radio telling the referee there's no receiver in the area. I mean, he was getting that information from the guys on the field, but I was confirming it with him. I was watching the penalty enforcement, kind of being that last check on that to make sure they enforced penalties correctly. I remember one I wasn't sure about and asked Steve, on pass interference. I said, was that a spot foul on 15? And just making sure they marked it off correctly. So I was kind of mama bear. I was just kind of there to kind of make sure everybody did their job and help when they needed me to help when they needed me to chime in.
Awesome. And then the only others on that is what you got a replay official now. And I love, Steve, your comment about that. I agree. Let's just get it right, man. I would like to see more of that. But what else? Who else plays? You got a replay official and who else?
Well, you have a replay official and a communicator. And then we also have what we call collaborative. So they were actually tapped into the NCAA offices. And in the office was Dean Blandino, who's the national coordinator of replay, and also formerly the NFL supervisor of officials. And they brought in a neutral Pac-12 replay official to be also part of that overall collaborative replay. So basically the two officials at the stadium are part of a crew. They were our crew in the national championship game, not part of our crew during the year, but part of the national championship crew. And those are the ones we're in constant communication with. We have the radio sets in our ear. Another technology advancement that football incorporated about 7 years ago that's really helped us officiate the game and really helped us with game flow and be able to put on a good. Stuart hasn't mentioned it, but the referee is very integral in making sure that the TV production comes off very positive for the fan experience. And so that's all part of it. And that communication with replay helps us adjudicate the game and officiate it and make sure we get things right. An alternate in this particular game is very important, in my opinion, and very comforting to me that I had Stuart behind me for the second half, because it's just one extra checkbox to make sure we're doing things correctly, but we can get quick response from Stuart because he's right there feeling it like we're feeling it. Replay was all the way up in the top of the stadium. You could almost see it in the picture way up here in the top of the stadium, way up in the corner. And so they're not getting the feel of what's happening down on the field. Okay, Stuart's getting it from being right there in the action. So I think that's very important for the alternate. The other thing that Stuart didn't mention is if one of us were to get run over by one of those big guys and couldn't continue, you don't want the national championship decided by less than the optimal amount of officials on the field. Stuart would take the place of pretty much everybody, although he mentioned the big guy in the middle, Johnny. Umpire's a tough spot to take over with those big guys in the middle of the field. But that's another key role for him. And fortunately, nobody got hurt, and we were able to finish the game. But that's how the whole operation works.
Okay, I want to move on to some plays, but I still need one other clarification. So in the replay process, who's making the final call? So there's calls made on the field, right? And who even decides, is replay going to get involved? What happens, because as a fan, I'm watching you guys peer into a little thing, what's really going on? And at the end of the day, who makes the call?
Go ahead, Stuart, you're the referee.
But at the end of the day, it's the replay official on site. I mean, he gets information from the collaborative replay official, which in the regular season is in Greensboro at the ACC. As Steve said, in this game, it was in Pittsburgh. But in the end, the on-site replay official has the final say. Now, as the referee, when I'm a referee in the game, yes, I'm looking, as you said, at the monitor, and I give input. And replay officials will ask me, what do you see? Do you agree? So they look for the referee's input. But in the end, it's on the replay official on site.
And what about the national level? Are they just giving input?
Yes, they're just kind of making sure that everybody's seeing the same thing. And the replay official on site will say before they make their final decision, this is what I'm seeing. I'm going to let this play stand, or I'm going to let this play, I'm going to overturn this play to this, and because this is what I'm seeing. And in the end, everybody ends up agreeing. But again, it is that on-site replay official's final say.
Okay, got it. Now I want to get into the game. You're in the game. What do you remember? Steve, I remember that play. We've talked about it, critical time in the game early on, double call, two things got to get right. You got them both right. But what else do you remember?
Well, the thing I remember, the first thing that I was thinking is, I've had a long career, and I've been fortunate enough to work a lot of these teams in the past. So knowing a lot of the coaches, I was able to reconnect with some of the coaches I hadn't seen in a while,
Nice.
where they were at other schools or they were in the NFL and then they came back. Several coaches on both teams I knew. But I had never worked a game that Nick Saban had coached, or I had never even met the man actually. So first thing was I'm excited, and I started on his side of the field. So the first thing I was thinking about was, man, this is going to be fun. I'm going to actually meet Nick Saban, and I'm going to be able to talk with him, and he's certainly a legend, you know. And it's a great challenge for me. How am I going to deal with this great coach who I have no idea how he handles this, the officiating staff during games? Is he excitable? Is he calm? Does he like to ask questions? Does he not like to talk too much? So it was a nice challenge for me. But my first memory is he was exactly like you see on TV, calm, not really overly talkative, but certainly not standoffish. Happy to get the information from you. Happy to communicate when you wanted to. When he needed some information, it was great. The other thing that I was pretty amazed by was he's bigger than life as a legend, as a coach. He's probably the best, potentially, certainly in discussion of the best of, coaches to ever coach college football. And yet he was a diminutive fella. I was much taller than him, so you know, that caught me off guard. I thought it was bigger than life, and then I see him, and he's just a regular sized gentleman, but just a very good guy, and very respectful of what we do. And in turn, we are very respectful of what coaches do and the pressures they have. That's one memory. The other memory is these are the biggest human beings I've ever seen in my life, and they could run 3 times faster than I ever ran in my prime. And I'm thinking, my goodness, what superior athletes we are producing. It was incredible. I've never seen that size men before. And then finally, the way they just threw everything they had into the game. I mean, the effort put on by both teams, the coaching staffs, the officials. It was just, everybody laid it out there, and it just was an unbelievable feeling, and a great challenge for us officials who had maybe never worked, certainly never worked a national championship game, but never worked Georgia or an Alabama game, especially with these two teams that were obviously superior athletes. That's just why they got to the game. Be able to see that sort of speed and size coming together and putting the effort forward is just incredible.
Yeah, maybe to comment on that is, it is amazing. I mean, they look like pro teams to me, you know, and they have pro programs. I mean, it's not just the players, right? It's full on program. Like when I spent 3 days with Nick Saban and Alabama, and I got some really cool stories. I'll share one real quick. But the bottom line is, yeah, it's the speed, the size, the professionalism of the staffs, and what goes around it. It's truly a program. It's unbelievable. Real quick, what have you seen in the last, I don't know, let's say 3 decades of college athlete football players? You know, have they been getting bigger, stronger, faster, and at what rate?
Yeah, Stuart, I'll take that, but I know you're going to have some good things to say about that. They have been getting bigger, stronger, faster. Obviously, you know, the science behind, you know, body mechanics and health and nutrition is just continues to improve, and so the athletes, you know, are you know, it's a totally different athlete than back in the 60s and 70s. It's you know, they're more dedicated to their sport, their bodies, what they need to be competitive. The number of days they actually have a football experience. I know when I was coaching youth sports, we would have a number of days that had a baseball event in it. I was coaching baseball. The number of days that we'd have a baseball event, whether it was training, drilling, full-on practice, set up scenarios, whatever. They have so much. It's a 12-month-a-year expectation and effort, and which is way different than it used to be. And so, you know, I think with the science of it and all, they're just getting to the point where they're, like I said, they're stronger, faster, and just so much more athletic. And then that's one of the reasons why, as officials, you have to stay sharp and you have to stay dedicated to the profession, because of the strength and the size and the uniqueness of these athletes and the talent, the rules have to evolve. Right. So each year they got to think about, okay, what were some of the things that were happening in our games that maybe because we have superior athletes, we have to start looking at, evolution. Like, low hits to the knee now are much more devastating because it's a 350-pound player hitting you in the knee at running at 4.4 or high hits. It's whatever it is. There's a lot of evolution that goes on because of the superiority of the athletes today. Stuart, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Just echo what Steve said. Even in the 9 years I've been in the ACC, the kids have gotten bigger and stronger and faster. And Steve mentioned the nutrition. When we go to do a 2 or 3 day group of scrimmages and practices and meet with the teams and things before the season, it's amazing when we go to eat with them. It's amazing to see their nutrition program in action right there with all the kids with their different diet based on their position and their needs and things of that nature. It's just amazing. I mean, people in my age group, I remember going in college football, I mentioned it to them and they're like, well, we just went and ate with everybody else. But now, no, it's not like that. Now everybody on the team has their tailored diet based on their needs. So it's interesting that the time and the money and the effort that's put into developing these athletes.
Yeah, I think, let me just share a quick Nick Saban story. So he brought me in early on. It was the year we actually won the national they won the national championship, I think 4 years ago. I can't remember now, maybe it's 5. But the point is, I get brought in to speak to the team and it's pre-season. They're getting ready for the first game. And you get all of it's a program, right? You can feel as you guys have been in incredible stadiums and incredible, preparation. And so I get 10 minutes with the coach before I'm going to speak. Now, normally, we talk, we have a briefing call ahead of time with the CEO, what are your objectives? How do we try to do this? Instead, it was all with his people, right? And then you get 10 minutes with Coach Saban right before I'm going to speak. And I'm like, I don't even know what he wants me to talk about yet. And I'm going to have to take 10 minutes and then go give the speech, right? But I've already planned it, right? So anyhow, you go walking into coach's office and it's, as you can imagine, I mean, way better than what's back there. By the way, Florida game. Thank you guys for sending me the game ball. Both of your signatures are on it. Let me grab it here real quick. We're talking about the national championship game, but this was the game you all did 11-27-21, signed Florida State, and, glad to be here, right? And there's all the signatures. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, your whole crew. Yeah, this is very powerful. I'm so grateful for that. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about in a second the preparation and what you all have been doing as a crew, how you've been using the messaging and all that kind of stuff. But just very quick, with Nick, so I get into his office, and it's really cool, all this stuff around. He's sitting a couple chairs, and we sit down. He says, sit down. Like he said, Steve, I mean, smaller guy like my size. I'm not that big, right, either. And so I sit down, and you always wonder, what do you want to start a conversation with? And so he's just sitting there, and I look at him, I go, hey, Coach, the last time we met was on the field. And so that got his attention. He's like, he does that. He goes, really? I said, yeah, 1981 Liberty Bowl. And he goes, Navy, Ohio State. Yeah, he said, yeah. And he was the defensive back coach on Ohio State in 1981. I played for Navy. I played defensive back. And then what impressed me is he just rattled off some of the key plays of that game. I mean, he had them, we all know this. It's same in you, you get certain things just burned into your head, but this was 1981. This is like, 30 years ago. And I was like, yeah. So now we got a connection. We're laughing and joking. And we start to talk, and I said, so Coach, what are you trying to accomplish? What do you want me to support here? And, he had total trust in my message. He kind of knew who I was. And he says, you're going to be able to talk to the guys. He says, but, this is a program. This is about preparation and focus. It's about execution, all the fundamentals that we all know are so important. He says, but I'm sure you got some differentiators in you that, just like in Alabama, we're about fundamentals, but we also, do things right all the time. And then we try to get better. So I said, okay, Coach. So then what happens is, so we start talking, then he starts asking me a ton of questions. He wants to know about flying, about the Navy, being on aircraft carriers. Excuse me. It wasn't about football, right? We start getting into all the other stuff, right? And all of a sudden the door opens and somebody, comes in, the handler, to get me out of there. And he's like, just kind of waves at him, close the door. We start talking more. Another 10 minutes comes up. The door opens. The handler comes in. He's like, Boom. This happens 5 times. I'm not
Oh
kidding.
my goodness.
Yeah. We go from a 10-minute meeting where we're shooting the shit for an hour. He's dipping. I don't know if he still is or not, but he was dipping and he had his little spittoon and he kind of goes, he took a little dip. And after a while he goes, hey, sorry about this bad habit. And I said, Coach, are you kidding me? I said, listen, I used to dip on the aircraft carriers. And I said, here's what you want. I said, if you ever want to have a dip, this is really what you want. You want to be on the back of an aircraft carrier, 5,000, 1,000 miles from land, where the stars are going into the water. You can't even tell where the sky is and where the sea is. And you can feel the jets turning behind you. The little hairs are being singed by the jet engines. I said, that's when you have a dip on the back of an aircraft carrier. And he's listening to me, right? And he's like, boom. So anyhow, boom, we go give the speech, fun time, ended up spending 3 days with the team, really getting into more. And I was only supposed to be there one day. He's like, no, stick around, get into a lot of the preparation, all the things we're going to talk about and their briefs and debriefs. And at the end, we're walking off the field. And he knows I'm leaving, and you don't bother him, or anybody, right? And he comes, he sees me, and he calls me over, and he's got his handler next to him, and we're just arm in arm walking off the field, shooting the shit. He says, "Thank you for all your help." And we get to the door where he's going to go up to his office, and I'm going to go. And he looks at me, and he goes, "Hey, Gucci, you changed my bucket list." And I was like, "Really, Coach? What do you mean?" And he says, I want to have a dip on the back of an aircraft carrier.
That's great.
That's my Nick Saban story.
That's a great story.
That's great.
Let's roll now to you guys have been involved with my content. Steve, maybe a little background of how you saw me initially, more in the business world, and fill me in. Why did it connect, and how have you guys been using this message, really?
Sure. Well, so first of all, you alluded to it. I have seen your message, seen you personally speak to 2 organizations I worked for over my career, and the interesting thing is my career and my profession spans almost the same amount of years as my career in this avocation of officiating. So when I was listening to you and trying to incorporate in my brain, listening to your message and incorporating in my brain, how am I going to take this and use it in my profession to be more successful in sales and healthcare sales? I was also thinking, and I couldn't stop myself from thinking about, man, this really will work great with officiating. and so I actually I stole from you because I got 2 for the price of 1 with your message. So you probably should have charged me twice. But anyway, and all I kept thinking about was, I've got to bring this sort of message to the officiating world. And I was, before I got into FBS, I was a referee like Stuart. And so I was a crew chief and managing my crew. So I used that message with my crews at the lower levels, the FCS level and Division 2, 3. And it really resonated with my crews back then. But I was thinking, all right, Stuart chose me this year to be the motivational not speaker, but bring the motivation to each week and a lesson to be learned for the crew. So I said, this is going to be easy for me. Gucci Foley's message is perfect for this crew. And I was able to, knowing you and knowing your message already and having it pretty much ingrained in my head, I was able to take little snippets of your podcasts and such, your speaking engagements, and bring a specific message each week to the crew, but fresh each week, something different. Visualization, focus, compartmentalizing, putting distractions out. And each week, and especially, I would be especially mindful of, depending on the week, what happened in the previous game? What do I think that we might have need a little bit to refocus ourselves and use that message that you deliver to bring that to everybody's attention for the next week in our briefing and then in our debriefing. And so, but just thinking about, now I'll just wrap it up with this. You have the Blue Angels organization, and you've got the entire organization with the support staff and everybody, which we have, like Stuart alluded to, with the graders and the trainers and the supervisors and all that stuff. And then you have the guys on the field, the officials on the field. That's the 6 jets up in the air, working in unison, knowing each pilot's next move and trust and the fact that you've prepared for this air show. That's what we do. We get in the briefing, we prepare for this event. We're going to officiate this football game, which is a show, and we're going to know each other's moves. We're going to be there for each other. We're going to trust each other, and that's basically it. And I'll share one comment because we keep referring back to this one particular play. And if you go back and you look at that play, the referee, Dwayne Haight, comes to me on what I asked him what he had, and he had a fumble versus an incomplete pass. And I gave him the information I had. And he told me afterwards, he said, Steve, I would have never believed that's what you were going to tell me. And you caught me off guard, but I had to trust my fellow crewmate that he knew what he was talking about. And I trusted you 100%. And then he steps away from me. And one of the things that I think is very subtle, but a fellow official would understand, he steps away from me and with complete confidence gets on the microphone and announces to 22.6 million people what we called on the field. And it was because he trusted me that I knew what I was talking about and I had the call correct. So that and that's how we operated on Stuart's crew throughout the entire season. We trusted each other and we were there and we had each other's backs. Stuart, do you have anything you want to add on that?
No, just maybe the best decision I made all year as a leader was to turn the motivational thing over every week to Steve. That's how I got introduced to you, and it's been great. I mean, prior to that, I was doing it. And for a couple of years, I was bringing in, I'm an 80s kid, so I was bringing in Top Gun clips and Vision Quest clips and Karate Kid and stuff like that. And it's stuff I really enjoyed, and I think the crew enjoyed it. In fact, we all had Top Gun names at one time before some members of my crew changed out. I was Maverick, of course, because I'm the referee. And then
Iceman.
Somebody else to do.
I love it.
Steve was Iceman. And I thought it's time for somebody else to do that part of it. And so I thought Steve's perfect because in the business world, I know he's been exposed to some of this and glad to be here became our theme. And it was great. It was absolutely great. I appreciate it. You probably the thing I enjoyed most, or the thing that I learned the most, that helped me the most, was the compartmentalization. I think I told you that once before. On the field, sometimes something happens, you think, I'm positive of that, but it was a big deal at the time. And now 2 or 3 plays later, you can't be thinking about it.
Right.
You've got to put it here, as you said. You got to put it right back here. Look at it after the game, and that's been excellent. It's all been excellent, but that's probably the one that's helped me the most.
Nice. Compartmentalization. Steve, how about you?
The same, although I would also add, so in the business world, Monday to Friday, there's a lot of distractions. You have, whether you have to have customer issues you have to deal with, you have deadlines, you have, forecasts, you have proposals that have to be in at a certain time, you're negotiating contracts, whatever it is. My escape to that and to be able to I can't even say the word, but compartmentalize my life is Monday to Friday business, Friday night through Sunday, the football business. And so it's an escape from this and a transition to this, and the two balance each other so well to allow me to be effective in both. And so I would say compartmentalization is very big for me, and your lessons teach me that. But then the second part of that is how to focus, because you got to get rid of that distraction on the Monday through Friday distraction. And you're here for one reason, and you're here to do a job, and you owe it to your fellow crewmates, your boss, the two teams, the fans, the coaches, to do the best job you can. So that focus part that you really stress, and how to do that really has helped me. I mean, tremendously.
Wow. What I love you also mentioned that Glad to Be Here was the theme for the entire year. Stuart, how did you incorporate that theme throughout the year?
Yeah, because we truly are blessed to be able to do what we do every weekend. So somebody pays us to go somewhere like Gainesville, Florida, and work a Division I football game. So truly, that's the attitude that we adopted, that I personally adopted, is I am glad to be there. It's truly a blessing. It's a job. We take it seriously. We prepare all week long. We prepare as a crew on the weekend and go out and work the game to the best of our ability. But I'm very glad to be given the opportunity, and I'm one of the few people in the country who's given that opportunity.
Yeah. And Steve, how did you, what was your weekly? So you said weekly, you took some content. How would you do that? What was your game plan on that?
So I would want to bring a certain message each week to the crew to keep it fresh, but also to sometimes to specifically deal with challenges from the week before.
Okay.
So, I would review a lot of the content I have on the Glad to Be Here content that you've provided.
Yep.
And so I would think to myself, all right, last week we had this one particular play. I know a couple of the officials got down on themselves a little bit or whatever it was. And maybe they for a play or two, they were not focused. So I would take that sort of scenario and go through all your content and say, this 3-minute piece of this message is going to be perfect for this week's crew, and help refocus the officials and be able to put things behind them and move forward and understand that you are the best of the best. You're here for that reason. As Stuart said, we're glad to be here because there's a lot of people that would like to be where we are.
Yeah.
And they will jump at the chance if they say they don't need Steve Matarante anymore. And there's going to be thousands of officials that could take my place. And so we are glad and grateful. And so we've got to give it our best effort. And when you see one of your fellow crewmates that's struggling through something, you could try to invent some things you want to come up with on your own. But for me, it was easy. I'll just go to what John Foley says and bring that message forward. And that's going to really resonate the best. John can say it better than I can. And that's how I would pick and choose the content that we would bring to the crew briefing every week. And thankful that you have all that material out there that I was able to utilize.
Yeah, we've been doing these impact videos now. It's one of the things COVID, taught us. We all have to adapt in life for anything since then. And, and for those who don't know, on the website, I have these impact videos. You can go to YouTube channel. There's lots of different places, and it's a different theme each week, right? And I'm glad that the most important part is what you just did, though, is adapting that to your specific challenge, right? And that's what's important, right? Because some of the themes are fairly big, like compartmentalization, like focus, like briefs, debriefs, but then making them specific to the organization or to whatever challenge you have. What did you find? Well, we know the debrief is so important, not only in officiating, but in life. And it's really, other than officiating and the Blue Angels, there's certain professions that understand sports, how powerful a debrief is. But in business, we don't understand it as well,
No.
or at least we just don't do it as well. So give me how did you accomplish that? The idea of the debrief within the officiating crew. Did you adapt some of the things that I've been saying? Tell me. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, first I'll start with the brief. The briefing is, okay, who do we have this week? Florida versus Florida State. Okay, so now we have to prepare ourselves for the two teams, the coaching staffs, what sort of personalities, what sort of challenges, who, do they have injuries? Who do we have playing each other, and what's at stake? So that's part of the briefing to get ready. Then the debrief is after the game's over. How did we do? Where could we do better? What we did. We sort of lost our game focus there for a minute and lost game flow. We need to do better at ball retrieval. We need to get set better. We need pre-snap identification. We need to focus on that. So the debrief for us was. And Stuart, I know you're going to have a lot to say about this, but the debrief for us, I think, is going back and looking at the films. Looking at the film and understanding, specifically fast forwarding to the spots you wanted to look at, but going back and evaluating ourselves overall and debriefing as individuals, which is an expectation of Stuart for his crewmates, and looking at where we could do better as individuals, and then looking as a crew and putting our egos aside, because that's another big thing. One of your big messages, and that's one thing that we really need to focus on as officials, is check your ego at the door and be able to self-evaluate and be able to handle critique from each other. And so that's how we would handle the debrief. We would say, hey, we just finished the game. How did we do? And a lot of times we'd go back to the hotel, open up our laptops, look at the game again, and say, in this particular situation, we could have done better. We could have done this. We could have done that. And then the debrief also prepares us for the next week's briefing. Right. And so that's how we would incorporate, the message in your briefing and debriefing is all about that, right? taking the task at hand, preparing for it, understanding what your challenges may be, knowing what you're going to have in front of you, so you're ready to handle it. And once you have that, you've put the preparation in, you focused on it, you can relax and just you're ready for the moment. You could focus and center point your mind into making sure, into knowing you're going to nail this game because you've already done all the preparation. Stuart, I'll turn it to you on that.
I was just going to say that, Steve's debrief happens with the crew immediately, but it kind of comes in stages because we'll do our own at the hotel. And then, Monday the training film comes out. Maybe Dennis found something we didn't find. And now we're back on the phone. Hey, did you see our play he had on there? Let's talk about that one. And Tuesday, the grades are coming out. Maybe there's something on there we didn't think about. So now we're back together again. So we're kind of forced to debrief multiple times a week about the previous game. While we're moving forward also and preparing for the next game, we're kind of forced to do several debriefs. Now the second training film on Thursday comes out, and maybe there's something else on there. But and the supervisor talks to me. I talk to Dennis every Sunday. He gives me a list of things to talk to the crew about. So it's kind of a multi-layered debriefing process. I'd love for it to happen all at once, but we don't really have all the data we need at one time. So it kind of happens in stages.
That's great. And that's a great example because that's life. You're constantly doing the debrief as you get more information and whatnot. I love that the debrief is, it already was part of your processes, right? How did you modify once you started seeing some of the ways that I was teaching debrief at all, like this idea of who gets to go first, the self-assessment, the general safe comments, the glad to be here, the I'll fix it. Did any of that become, terminology?
Oh yeah. Actually, pretty much everything you just said. It kind of changed our mindset on our crew. Not necessarily that we weren't doing those things, but it just kind of changed the way we looked at them and the things we said. Kind of changed our language on our crew, to be quite honest. From this kind of 80s movie vernacular to the whole glad to be here concept of John Gucci Foley.
I think you mentioned one word too that's important: safe. Yeah. I think using your teachings, we knew we were safe to be able to either to self-evaluate, and no crewmate would think less of us. If I came to the crew meeting self-deprecating because I said, man, did I screw that call up last week? I could do better. I'm going to do better. I'll fix it. My crew just trusted that if I said that, my crew trusted that that's what I would do. They wouldn't sit there and go, oh my goodness, we got to worry about Steve this week. Right. Everybody was safe. And I felt safe to even say to my fellow, we have a full crew, but we also have what we call our tandem teammate, the downfield official, which is, by the way, I think you met her through the Zoom, Karina Tovar, the first female official ever to work in the ACC. She was my downfield teammate, and my crossfield teammate, head linesman, was Steve Klein most of the games. And so I felt comfortable and safe that I could critique them, and they would receive that information because of your teachings. They knew what was in my heart to make us all better, and they wanted to be better, and they wanted to get better. So I think that's really the safe part is I think stands out amongst all of the great things that we learned from your teachings.
Well, I love the not only did you learn them, you adapted it, and look at, you proved it on the national TV with 22.6 million people and getting the calls right. I mean, we keep talking about the one play, but there were some other tough calls that you guys got right. Give me what do you remember? What were some of the other challenges?
I think the toughest calls that we got right actually could have been the no calls. These were two very strong physical teams that that were very good at what they do. And so when you look at, and they're both very good at stopping the run, they're both very physical teams. It's hard to run the ball against them. So both teams had a game plan to come in throwing the ball. So what happens when you throw the ball? You're going to introduce contact downfield, defensive pass interference, offensive pass interference. Now you have to also, in the briefing, talk about, because we've prepared for it, we've got bigger, stronger receivers. some contact may look like offensive pass interference, but because they're so strong, this might be a very subtle movement that has a powerful effect, but not necessarily a foul. Same thing with the defense. They're strong physical defenders. They might be, the contact might be look like a foul, but it really is. It's just a physical difference in the players themselves. So I think some of the best calls were the no calls. We let the, especially the downfield guys, let the receiver and the defender play football, go after the ball when it was thrown to them. And we really had to focus on advantage, disadvantage, no harm, no foul. And when you look at it from that perspective, that's where preparation really helped us in this game and made us look, made us look as good as you're saying we looked, because everybody had the mentality is we're going to let them play and we're going to just officiate advantage, disadvantage. And it played out just exactly the way we prepared for it. Two physical teams, two very strong teams. And we only made a couple of calls for pass interference that were really just obvious advantages gained by the defense. So they had to be fouled. They had to be called. But there was several plays where people could say, wasn't that an interference? Wasn't that interference? But the no advantage game, because the strength of the two players, they were allowed to be athletes and allowed to have an opportunity to make the play. Stuart, I don't know what you're.
Stuart, before you go, real quick, Steve, I was a defensive back, and so I remember those calls, and no one ever taught it to me until you just said advantage, disadvantage. So what are you taught how to make that call?
Well, and this is some great teaching that comes down from philosophies from our position trainers in the National Football League. I'll break it down into some simplistic things. We compartmentalize and put in a box 5 or 6 things that are defensive pass interference: arm bar, arm grab, early contact, playing through the back. So then you look at that and you say, okay, now, was that an element that was part of this play? Did he grab his arm? Yes. Did he make him a one-arm receiver, or was the receiver able to fight through the hold and still make a play on the ball? Advantage, disadvantage. He grabbed him, yeah, but the receiver got free and made a play on the ball. No advantage, no foul. So that's how we break it down, and that's what really I think distinguishes the experienced official from the one still learning and getting better and better, and then the advantage of the advantage and disadvantage of a hold. Did he hold this player over here? Yeah, but the run was on this side of the field. No advantage gain. If he held him, if he didn't hold him, that player was not going to make a play on the ball. So that's how we really break it down to the finite way of officiating the game. So putting these categories together and then putting it in a box and saying, did it meet the criteria? Did it not? And I will say there was one other play in the game, very similar to the one we had that we've been talking about early in the game. Was it a fumble or was it a forward pass? Right. And Georgia picked up the ball and ran it in for a score. I think it was the third play of the game. Again, replay comes in and has indisputable video evidence to say it was a forward pass, and we get the call right. We get it right with the help of our 9th and 10th crew member, 9th, 10th, and 11th crew member, who weigh in on it and say that was a forward pass. He was throwing it forward, and so that was another big call in the game that we were able to get right. And one last thing I'll say on that: we're not necessarily wrong by letting the play out, even though they overturned our call. There's a certain way to officiate in the world of replay today, and so I would say that in the end, the play was an incomplete pass, but we officiated correctly in the sense that we let the play out, because if we're right, we're right. And if we're wrong, replay has an opportunity to fix it. But that was another tough play that I'm so thankful we got right in the end with replay.
Awesome. Stuart.
I was going to say the same thing, actually. From the vantage point of where I was standing, and from the vantage point of an official who was simply kind of on the helping end this time, and where I was lined up near the line of scrimmage, I felt like they just did a great job of letting the players decide the game. Fans say you can call holding on every play. that's not true. Just like Steve said, we have categories for defensive pass interference. There's categories for holding, grab and restrict, a hook and restrict, takedown, reverse takedown, a tackle. And those things, there's grabbing going on along the line of scrimmage, as there always is. But the guys just did such a good job of making sure only actions that created an obvious advantage for an offensive blocker were penalized, and their judgment was just impeccable on that.
Wow. Okay. Hey, I was thinking of now just the memories after the game. So we talked a lot about during the game, right? And that was such an epic game right into the fourth quarter, super tight. And then, finally Georgia pulls away. How much of, I think how I can ask this question, how much of the game are you just focused on making a call versus understanding the, the feeling of how it's playing out? And how do you handle not getting wrapped up in, who wins or who loses? I mean, all that crap. I mean, obviously you're just gonna make the call the best you can, but how do you handle some of those challenges of being in front of so many people, being in a cool place like the Lucas Stadium? How does that go through your mind? How do you handle that?
Preparation first. You know what you're going to be dealing with when you get out there. You're going to have a sold out stadium. You're going to have a lot of people watching you, including your fellow peers who are home watching the game, who want to see you do well, represent the profession of officiating well. You got to know that that's part of it, and then just relax your mind. I always say that as the intensity level goes up, we go further into cruise control. We want to just sit back, so how do you do that? We have certain responsibilities. We focus on our responsibilities. The game slows down if you're looking at specific things rather than trying to see everything that's happening. If you're trying to see everything that's happening, including the 69,000 fans in the stands, you're not going to see anything. The more you see, the less you see, I guess is the best way to put it. So, or the more you look at, rather, the less you see. So,
Right.
that going in, that, this is going to be very intense. It's going to be an atmosphere that's incredible. And, you got to just relax your mind and just focus on your job. And so that's part of it. One of the things that I will say, though, because you touched on it in your question, when I got the assignment, when Stuart got the assignment, what our fellow friends and peers always said to us, and it seemed like in every single message, was, congratulations on the assignment. Go out there and knock it out of the park, but just remember to enjoy yourself. Enjoy the moment. And so that's part of it. You're trying to do your job, but you're also, at the timeouts, you have 2 minutes and 50 seconds of commercial. You're thinking, man, this is fun. and then post game, you come off the field, you're mentally exhausted, but the NCAA Bowl Committee had a nice little event for us afterwards. We were able to come together and talk about, how we did and how much we enjoyed it, and the fellowship and camaraderie of the crew and our families. I mean, they get to be a part of it too. We always incorporate our families. We're thankful for our families. We're grateful for our families. They allow us to do this. In our pregame, before we took the field, we come together in prayer, and we thanked our families for allowing us to be here. And in our briefing, when our referee Dwayne Haight went around the room, each person got to say something, and we talked about how thankful we are of our family who allow us to do what we do, and we were able to celebrate with them after the game in this little private event. It was fantastic.
Beautiful. Stuart, how do you handle it?
Well, Dwayne Haight, the referee, kept saying throughout the days prior to the game, remember, once we get there, it's a football game. And I found that pretty easy to buy into, because, all the pomp and circumstance before, is what kind of gets your mind off of the game. Yeah. But once I walked out on the field prior to the game, and the kickers were warming up, and the quarterbacks were taking snaps, and the receivers were running routes, I was like, it's a football game. and when toe met leather at 8:15 p.m., it was a football game. Just like any other. I mean, a little more on the line, a little more exciting. Huge crowd and a lot at stake, but it was the same thing we did every single week of the season. And so that kind of brought me down just a little bit, realizing, yeah, this is football.
Yeah, I love that. Same thing with flying. You could get caught up in oh, I'm over San Francisco today. It's a gorgeous day, millions of people. Or you could say, but at the end of the day, I'm just flying the jet. I don't care. The jet doesn't care where you are. I mean, I just got to execute what I have to do. And I think that's one of the unique things we talked about compartmentalization earlier, is the ability to go back and forth, to toggle back and go, yeah, this is cool. I appreciate the opportunity, enjoy the moment. But then when you're in the moment, you're in the moment. And I love what you said, Steve, about that, it slows down. Things slow down the more focused you are, right? The more you're focused on, like you talked about, that play and many others. And then at the end of the day, that's part of what glad to be here means too, is celebrate the victories, right? And usually you wait till it's over. So I'm glad they had a nice reception and something special for you. So what happens during the timeouts in most of these games? Or give me a story, whether it was this game or one other, where maybe something happened that we all just didn't know. You're an official. A lot of emotion is on the field. Give me some fun stories.
Well, and during the year, we're together as a crew week in and week out. Those are good times to sort of bring in a little levity and tell a joke or pick on somebody or say something funny. Get people laughing when the cameras aren't on you.
Right.
You don't want a camera on you and you're laughing. Okay. But when the cameras are off and they're showing the Geico commercial, all right, you could be funny and have fun with your crewmates, or it's a good time to do a quick debrief, really. Hey, you know what? Great job on that last play. Outstanding the way you handled that. Good hustle, whatever. So, but that's another great thing about the technology they've given us to officiate. We could all communicate from 30 yards away and still hear each other very clearly, as to be able to pick on somebody and make a joke and have some levity, but also talk about, hey, some of the things we're doing well in this game. Let's keep it going. Let's stay in it. Let's stay focused. Those are what we use the timeouts for. The other opportunity to take advantage of for timeouts is to be able to communicate with the coaches on some plays that they didn't really understand what happened. And so you can fix it. We always say, if you can fix it on Saturday, you don't have to worry about hearing about it on Sunday. That's how we use those timeouts. But it's not just we could breathe and do nothing. You want to be working for that full 3 hours and 30 minutes. Stuart?
I usually use the timeouts to kind of go around to my guys and just make sure everything's okay, and lightheartedly, everything on the sideline, everything, anything I need to know. And I'll use it a lot of times. I have a couple, we try to stay loose enough during the game, but like our rookie this year, Karina Tobar, in timeout, she's standing at parade rest with that game face on. I would take the opportunity to go to her in a timeout and say, I hope you're having fun. And she was. She was having the time of her life. But, she was taking her role very, very seriously. But as the referee, I try to use it to, rotate around during the timeouts, just make sure everybody's doing okay, anything they want me to know. And, try to keep everybody loose in line.
Okay, cool. I like that. Have you ever found, are coaches trying to intimidate you, or to tell me some stories there? Give me an example. What happens?
Well, you want me to go first on that story? Or you got some? Okay. Yes, especially the wing officials, both deep and short. Yeah. Usually the short wings are right where the action is, because the coach wants to be close to where the line of scrimmage is, and we're right on the line of scrimmage. And the coach will take those opportunities to try and intimidate, for sure. Always looking for any advantage they can get, and whether they want to be funny and try to be nice to you and try to win you over that way, or they want to be aggressive and intimidating and try to get you to off your game, whatever it is. But I've had countless encounters with coaches. I always try to it's one of those things that come with experience, and part of our job is to communicate with coaches. And I try to make it fun with them too. I try to get them laughing. I try to make it fun for them, but also I try to make sure that I send the message that I'm not going to be intimidated. I'm going to do my game. This isn't my first game. And so I appreciate your effort to try and win me over or influence me. But at the end of the day, I trust in me. And so, but I've had experiences where one time in 2013, I was on the ESPN all weekend long on the Not So Top 10, coach screaming and yelling and hitting me with his hat with. So that was, and I'm still famous for that, or infamous, I should say. So, but we have some coaches that like to try to intimidate and get aggressive and angry, and we have some that are very reasonable. But it doesn't matter how they act. We are in cruise control, and our mentality is it's not going to change a thing that we do. Stuart?
Fortunately for me, in the middle of the field as the referee, the four officials on the sideline typically take the brunt of all that kind of thing. Yep. And by the time I get to them during the TV time, I think they still have a question, but these guys have de-escalated the thing already. When I get over there, I typically don't catch the brunt of any of the coach's anger or wrath, because Steve and my other Steve on the other side of the field and my side judge, George Liotis, and my field judge, Karina, they've taken care of it by that time. And that's what happens at this level. It's not always the case at the lower levels. When I first became a referee at the Division II level, it's not always the case. But people at this level on the sidelines, God bless them, they take the brunt of that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. What happens at the end of the game? End of the game, TV is, onto the players getting interviewed, and you guys just disappear, right? I mean, as it should be. I mean, I think one of the comments was Joe Torre brought me in to speak to all the Major League Baseball umpires, right? And so, yeah, we got to talk about the future, man. Where do we go from here? But, one of the things is I remember sitting in some of their things is, and it's so obvious, but the referees, the umpires, you don't want to be, you're part of the game, but you don't want to be seen, right? You don't want the focus needs to be on the players, the coaches, the fans, whatever, right? So how does that tie into what you experienced at the national, championship game or any game? The game's over and boom, what happens?
Well, in a typical game, we're as soon as the clock hits 0, we're on a van and headed back to the hotel. I mean, we dress at the hotel. There's somebody waiting on us. As soon as the clock hits 0, bam, we're back to the hotel, and we're just away from the entire thing. Now, this was a little different because they had us dressed at the stadium, but still, and I don't know if Steve had the same experience. The confetti cannons had just gone off. Right. There's people running on the field. I actually had a hard time getting off the field because of people running onto the field. But then once we got to the locker room, it was like we were the only people there. I mean, literally, they just had us closed off. It was us. The replay officials came down. Our boss came down. The national coordinator officials came down, and we were just kind of alone. Yeah. We were just kind of away from all that pomp and circumstance. It was very interesting how it was, Steve. Don't you think?
Yeah, no, I had a similar problem. You and I were on the same side of the field, which is the farthest away from our locker room. So we had to run through a lot of humanity, a lot of big humanity. And so it was tough to get back to the locker room. But yeah, they say that, when you've really worked a good game, nobody even knew you were there. And when that's the level of success you could achieve, it seems odd, but that's what we try to achieve. Nobody. I was talking to the radio announcer of the game, Sean McDonough, before the game. I at a fundraiser, I had the opportunity to play in a golf outing with him, and we were in a foursome together, and I reminded him of that story, and he was, remind me again how to pronounce your last name. So I said it, and he said, let's hope I never have to say that on broadcast, unless I'm talking about what a great putter you are. So the thing is, we don't want to be saying your name. Exactly. Don't be saying my name. So that's the level of success you want to achieve. And a lot of people want to achieve, like, I want them talking about me, week in and week out, how great I am. No, we want you not talking about us at all. So it is good that the practice of officiating is to get off the field. It's not about us. Let the players celebrate. Let the coaches celebrate. We're out of there. We are one of the 3 teams that have to be a key component of the game. No doubt about it. You can't have an official result without officials on the field. So we do play a big role for those 4 quarters and that entire game. But at the end of it, it's not about us. So let them enjoy it, and we're out of there.
That it takes a special person and a commitment to something higher than yourself to do that, and I'm glad you talked about, you got into the room and all of a sudden you're looking around, looking at each other, and it's like, holy shit, what just happened? I mean,
Exactly.
and I think that's beautiful about life too. Anybody who is serving another, and making a difference at a big level. Yeah, there's the time you're in front of the cameras, 3 hours of the game, but they don't understand, or not everybody appreciates all the work that goes into getting there, all the work that goes to getting better. You're both of you today have been talking about this thirst for continuous improvement, getting better. It's just built into the DNA. And then afterwards, maybe it's your wife that says, by the way, take out the trash, you were late. I mean, you're back to the school, you're back to work, right? Yeah. And then maybe you get a podcast like this where we get to celebrate again. We get to talk about the plays, we get to talk about what it went into it, and that's enjoy the moment kind of thing too, right?
Absolutely.
So hey, where do we go from here? Now you guys are my probably best ambassadors who really understand the message, right? And not only understand it, but have applied it directly. And adapted it, and that's the idea, So where does Gucci go from here? With what's the future hold for this message to the world?
So, from my take, the Gucci message really, we saw the impact on our crew. We don't want to just be a good crew. We want to be a good conference of officials, right? So I think your message needs to be spread throughout our entire conference. And then from there, the entire, world of officiating, because again, we talked about the synergies. It's incredible. So one of the things that we want to take forward, Stuart and I want to take forward is your content to our staff. And then we've already talked to our supervisor on incorporating the Gucci glad to be here mindset.
Yeah, let's call it glad to be here. It's really not Gucci. I think what's more important is glad to be here mindset.
All right, the glad to be here mindset. Okay, so the glad to be here mindset, and taking that and just we want to make each other better. That's a great way to do it. Bring the glad to be here mindset to the rest of the staff, which is over 120 officials, I guess, right, Stuart? And then, well, actually, it's more than that when you can incorporate the other conferences that are affiliated. So it's maybe over 200 officials that are part of our organization. And just take that glad to be here mindset to everyone. And I'm looking at ways to do that, working with you, and I know Stuart's the ambassador of it as well. And so where we go from here is getting the message out and then finding ways to do it. I like the educational sessions that each crew can utilize, et cetera, week in and week out. Speaking to our group as a whole at our clinic, which we have every July, areas like that.
Stuart, as you answered the question, even beyond officiating, I'm thinking about, you're at school right now. By the way, it's late East Coast time, and you're still there at school, and you're putting in extra hours. You're making a difference with people's lives. Where do you see this message? Where does it need to go beyond officiating even?
Oh, I mean, absolutely into the school system. I mean, with things the way they are with COVID, et cetera, I just think the whole glad to be here mindset has to be part of everyone. There's a lot of people jumping out of this profession right now just because of the way things are. And it's not the kids, it's not parents, it's this whole thing that's going on with schools operating at such low capacity, student-wise, teacher-wise, et cetera, because of things going on with this disease that won't go away. And, to continue to be successful, to continue to make sure the kids, I had over 50% of my kids out today, to make sure the 47% that were here today learn, I can't sit down here at my desk and not do the things I would do if they were all here. I got to be glad to be here. I got to continue with the lesson plan I prepared, that I put in place. If something goes wrong with one kid, I've got to compartmentalize it and worry about the others that are in the room. So it just certainly applies to everything that I do in my life. And I'm looking forward to continuing it here at school with officiating, and it applies to so much in personal life as well.
Awesome. Well, you got my commitment and my team's commitment that we want to get this message out, definitely to youth and schools and businesses. You know, Steve, you know, that's where it started, but it really needs to make a difference in anyone's life, no matter where they are. So I want to wrap with, besides saying thank you, I like to end on two questions. The first one is going to be, are there any, I'd say, sayings, they could be sports related or not. Are there any, I call them live withs, you know, things that you live your life by? It could have been, you know, your parents, a coach, a teacher, some quote, some mantra, and there may be even more than one that you live your life by. What would that be?
Well, mine would be related to football as well as my teaching profession, but my high school football coach always said, little eyes are watching. And that doesn't just apply to kids. I mean, that applies to officials at the lower levels, watching how we were doing things the other night. Officials at the lower levels who come when we appear at camps and clinics and things of that nature, which will pick up very soon. It never ends anymore. And, you know, how I carry myself as far as my preparation, as far as my attitude, as far as my willingness to give back to those younger officials. And I think that's the main thing for me. You know, as I was coming up, I met a lot of people who are willing to help. And then you always meet that minority of people who are not willing to help. And I don't want to be one of those folks. I don't want to leave that kind of legacy. I want to be the guy that one of these days I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. And I hope it's a long time from now, but one day it's going to happen. And I want to make sure that people below me can step right into my spot. And I want them to think that I had a role in them getting there.
What was the quote again? Because you broke up a little bit. What was
apologize. Little eyes are watching.
Little eyes are watching.
Yes. That was my high school football coach. He said that all the time. Little eyes are watching. Be careful what you're doing, how you're doing it.
Beautiful.
Steve, over to you.
Yeah, you know, Stuart mentioned something about clinics starting, and you know, Stuart runs a clinic in Virginia, and there's going to be other clinics. I get to speak to younger officials to mentor them, so I certainly can't wait to bring the Glad to Be Here message to them as well, and to teach them. But I'll take it more personal. A good friend of mine who was sort of like my godfather in officiating, he's in the NFL, Jeff Bergman. He's retiring this year after 30 years as an NFL official. And when I got this assignment, I texted him and I thanked him for his mentorship, giving me the opportunity to do what I'm going to do on that particular Monday night. And I thanked him, and he said, "I'm very kind of you to incorporate my mentorship. You've earned it." You know, and he went on and on and on. But he said, "But don't forget now, it's your time to start giving back." So that's going to be what I do as well. I mean, Stuart and I are going to have opportunities to be able to mentor younger officials and make them better, you know, better officials, and just be an evangelist to this profession. And also, I do have a profession of sales, and I have you know, newer, younger, inexperienced employees that I work with, peers that I can take this message to as well, who unfortunately weren't on at the company when you spoke to Allscripts. So you know, that's you know, that's what I want to do. By the way, I think both Stuart and I would agree. I'll speak for myself, but I think Stuart and I would both agree. Your message can incorporate so many ways of life. I'm able to use your message to be a better father. I can teach my kids how to prepare themselves for different scenarios and to handle situations better and more calmly and more poised and stuff. So yeah, it's something that I think just we'll be able to adopt and utilize throughout the rest of whatever what it is we're doing at the time. But Stuart, great point. I'm going to be coming down to your clinic in Virginia, thinking about the Glad to Be Here opportunities I'm going to give them, and speak to them, as well as a clinic in Philadelphia and other areas. That's what I intend to do.
Love it. It's your time to give back. Wow.
Yep.
That's powerful.
Yep.
Okay, let's wrap with a Glad to Be Here. I'll start, and then you guys can finish. First off, thank you. Thank you for taking this time. I really enjoyed celebrating and learning from the game so quickly. I know you've got a lot of people reaching out to you, and I want to say thank you for taking the time to be on it. Mostly though, thank you for taking the message, just what we said here, and keeping it alive, not only amongst your crew, all the officiating, but in schools as a father. That's the biggest part. Giving back, purpose larger than self. You guys live the glad to be here mindset, and I appreciate that. So glad to be here. Over to you.
Glad to be here. You know what? I appreciate you, Gucci, for taking the time to spend some time with our crew. With this today, with the last game, that Florida State game, where you actually joined our pregame via Zoom. And I appreciate you giving back, giving to guys like us, taking what you've learned and what you developed in your career and with your business and helping us. I'm very appreciative of that. Thank you so much.
Yes. And of course, glad to be here. Glad to be. I'm so glad to be here, but I'm so glad I was there when you spoke at McKesson and again at Allscripts, that I could meet you and hear your message for the first time, and how, as Stuart said, you continue to give back to so many facets of business and avocations, et cetera. I'm glad to be here to be able to share that message with others. And very thankful. And I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to give back to my crew your message week in and week out. Thank you, Stuart, for allowing me to be the person that brought that content to the briefing, and just excited about how we're going to continue to use this glad to be here mindset to continue to improve and get better, and always forward, never backwards.
Beautiful. All right, guys, congratulations. Once in a lifetime opportunity to do that game, and you guys did it so well, and that's not by chance. I think it's a testament to the preparation and everything you did throughout this season. So great job. Proud of you. I've actually been having more fun saying I know you guys than Nick Saban. So how's that?
Oh, that's great.
Glad to be here. See you.
Glad to be here.
Be here.